It's time for Video Game Players Club, the call-in video game podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Schultz, and this is episode 3 of the Video Game Players Club, a call-in podcast where we take calls from video game players and listeners sharing their stories of passion, excitement, and memories of video games that they love, but always through the lens of each week's topic. This week's topic was video games that you quit playing. Before we jump in, I want to say that later on in this episode, we have an interview with CrossChop Chris, a YouTuber that you may be familiar with. At the mid part of the episode, I'm going to introduce next week's topic and the ways that you can call in through phone, Skype, or I'm also introducing now a way to send in a topic without actually calling in, and I'll read them off, and that's through the website, videogameplayersclub.com. So stay tuned, and we'll introduce next week's topic. But before we do that, let's just get into the first call from Derik at Gaming Rebellion.
Hey, Matt, this is Derik from Gaming Rebellion. The game that I really stopped in the middle of that I think a lot of people are surprised that I didn't like is I never made it more than about an hour and a half in the Dragon Age Inquisition before I outright hated it. I liked the first game, the less so of the second game, the better. But the combat in the new one, it just really wasn't what I wanted at the time, and it just bored the hell out of me. The press a button, wait 5 minutes, and maybe something will happen just was so terrible that I went and took it back, took the hit from returning a brand new game, and used that money to buy The Witcher 3. I made the correct decision. Thanks for having me on.
So that was Derik from Gaming Rebellion, and what's funny is there seems to be this theme happening in the show where the topics somehow bring up the same games being mentioned again and again in a particular episode. Last episode it was Dragon Warrior. This time it's another Dragon game, Dragon Age Inquisition. And I think partly because it's so recent of a game, but also I do find that a lot of modern, especially Western RPGs tend to... they're so big and so vast that if you're somebody who wants to complete it all, you get stuck in this loop of having to do everything, and eventually you can get burned out by that. And actually that leads us into the next call from Neosolid 22, a YouTuber you should certainly check out, and he's called in before and he's supporting the show on Twitter. And I just want to give a shout out and thank you to him. He has another story, the same exact game, about Dragon Age Inquisition.
Hey, Neosolid22 here again. The game that I quit is more recent, actually, and it's Dragon Age Inquisition. I got pretty far in the game, but I'm a bit of a completionist when it comes to RPGs, and I just kept doing side quest after side quest, and then it opened up a new area, and there'd be more side quests and more side quests. Finally, it just got a little too overwhelming. My gaming time is limited due to family and work, so I felt that my time would be better spent moving on to other games at this point, seeing as I get very little gaming time as it is. Just pouring that much time into a game, which I was probably at the 40 to 50 hour mark when I did stop it. It was just becoming too much. So I went ahead and moved on to other games, and I don't regret it. Maybe someday I'll go back to it and finish it. But that's my story. A newer game. I'm sure there's been some in the past, but that's what I have for now. Thanks.
So that was Neosolid22. Same kind of... Derik, dropped out. The combat, I think, was what really set him off. Partially probably because he'd played the other Dragon Age games, and they'd messed around with the combat and the whole series, and Inquisition was kind of a mix of 1 and 2's combat style. But yeah, the modern games, man, especially Western RPGs, I feel like you just have this theme of getting burned out on the mini side quests, and I think that's something that's really hard for me to let go of, that I find with newer games, is that with these see everything, do everything kind of games, it's more about the experience, and you really might be best suited if you actually role play a bit and just sort of get lost in the world and create your own narrative rather than trying to check off every box in the game of things to do. But now let's switch gears into the retro side of things, and we have a story from Mike Anthony.
Hi, this is Mike Anthony. I'm a writer at RetroWare TV, and my column is still loading, and the biggest game I ever quit playing was Sakura Wars for the Dreamcast and Sega Saturn. I have a habit of falling in love with games I can only half play, And the Soccer Wars series definitely falls in line here. For those who don't know, the series is a hybrid dating / social sim and tactical RPG, and they are not in English. They're all in Japanese, and I'm a monolingual American who only speaks English. And to play these games, you either have to be crazy brave or crazy stupid, and I think I'm a little bit of both. The games, social sim, text, RPG, text, both really feed into each other, so we have to have a guide, and I found one. I found one 4 or 5 years ago, and I got to town, I printed it out, I started playing through the game, and I fell in love with it, the characters, the story, the quirks of the social system. And I got about a couple chapters in, and the guide ended. It was incomplete, and I didn't realize it.
Oh, God.
And I was just so bummed out, and I was left in the middle of a scenario I didn't know what to do, and I had to go back a whole while to save it. So I was like, screw this. I'm done. I love you, game, but I can't do this. I'm not that masochistic. And then a few years later, I found it again, and my drawer with games in it, and I looked up a complete guide, made sure it went all the way through, and started playing it, and I went all the way back to where I was. I think a few hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours longer, and I was having a blast. I was in the middle of this big battle, and I was understanding it better than before, and I spilled like a liter of Coca-Cola over the guide I printed out, and I panicked because I was in a part of the game that was a do-or-die moment, and I lost the game, and I lost the battle, and I had to go back, and I was swerving with the controller, and I accidentally erased the VMU by taking it out too soon while I was messing with the game. So not only did I lose the save file again for a super intensive game that I don't speak the language for, but I erased like Skies of Arcadia, Jet Rider Radio, the saves in the process.
No.
And after that, I just quietly shut off the TV, put the discs away, and put that back in a little drawer that I never opened, and I was done. Recently, though, I got games 2 through 4 for Christmas, and I decided I'm going to finally dive back in and try it after a few years of fondly remembering the game and not how it left off, and I'll see how it goes, but I don't know if I'm ever going to finish this. It was a really bad quit multiple times. That's it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
So Mike Anthony from RetroWare TV, and his column is called Still Loading. And man, it's so funny. That ties into episode 1 of Lost Game Saves, but he's got an epic story, a two-parter, the exact same game that he quit playing for completely different reasons. That is an awesome, awesome call, totally awesome story. But that game sounds really interesting too. A weird mesh of a dating sim and a tactical RPG game. That's too bad it's not in English, but I wish you luck, Mike, on getting through that series again, and hopefully you can break the strange curse that you've encountered with that game. Okay, our next call is from Brasel, Tony Brasel The Gamer, Brazimataz as I call him.
Hey Matt, it's Brasel. Okay, so a game I never finished, though I should have. I'll turn off my freaking notifications. They're bugging the shit out of me. Alright, so a game that I never finished, but I should have. Kingdom Hearts. Everybody loves Kingdom Hearts, and honestly, I just never really got it. It's an okay game, but the problem is that the gameplay itself tends to get repetitive after a while, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't appeal to me. I mean, I really like Squaresoft and Final Fantasy stuff, obviously. I'm a fan of Disney. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, I just can never finish Kingdom Hearts, and everybody gives me hell about it. But I gotta rack it up to the gameplay. For whatever reason, it just gets repetitive, and I just don't enjoy using Sora to, pound through enemies. It's just not a fun game for me. But that is my game that I never finished, and probably a game I should have finished. So maybe I'll try to tackle it again in the future.
It's interesting that he mentions Kingdom Hearts, because that game was re-released, and interestingly enough, I believe the entire code base was lost, and so when they did the remaster, they ended up having to code the whole thing from the ground up again. And that's kind of, I guess, kind of in the vein of the past couple of episodes that we've been having. But yeah, Tony just didn't like the gameplay hook, and I think that's, for a lot of people, I think that's an important aspect of it, and kind of ties into something I was thinking about with this topic, which is retro games. And when I say retro, I mentioned that with the Dreamcast game that Mike Anthony was talking about, but I guess I should specify 16 and 18-bit games. Nobody really called in with those games except for our very last call that I'm going to have here. And I was thinking about why. And I mentioned a little bit about Western RPGs and the collectathons that they sort of introduce. And I think part of it is that you can play an old game like an 8-bit and a 16-bit game, and the hook, the loop that a game puts you through is a lot shorter. And so you have this sense of completion even if you don't beat the game. And let me give an example. With the Mega Man series, the loop in Mega Man is it's kind of a multiple hops in the loop. And in Mega Man, you pick a stage. That's the first loop. What stage do I start on? Which robot master do I go against? And what do I think will combat this or that? Or do I want to try something new? If I've already played it. Then you have the loop when you load the level. You go into the level, and now you've got an enemy in front of you. And with Mega Man, memorizing the pattern of the enemy and knowing what weapon to use against them is part of that loop. And so that's one loop just on one screen where you're going through kind of a analytics in your brain of what tasks do I perform here. Then there's the loop of getting through the stage to the Robot Master. Then there's the loop of fighting the Robot Master and beating the Robot Master. And all these things are very short, very quick, relatively speaking. And then, overall, the entire Mega Man game has the entire big circle loop of, okay, now I've got to get to Wily's castle, re-defeat the Robot Masters, and then finally beat Wily. That's, it's got these overarching rewards to them. Modern games tend to be a lot more ambient about the reward cycles that you get in the game. They tend to be loose with sort of the Pavlovian, I achieved something, I did something, I became a better player. So it feels a bit more tedious sometimes, and it feels a bit more like almost too much like real life, I guess you could say, in some ways. And I think, especially as you get older, your time and your willingness to invest in those kinds of things changes. And that's something that we saw mentioned by Neosolid 22 earlier. Yeah, so I kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's just a thought that I was having about modern games versus more retro games, the 16-bit era and the 8-bit era. And segueing into that, we have our final call, and it's an epic call. It's probably the most craziest call I've ever received, the craziest story. And that's from Jeremy Nichols, and I'll just let him kick it off.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Nichols, co-host of the Co-op Show, which you can find on iTunes. And I have a story about giving up on a game. When I was younger, in about 1998, my grandfather passed away, and I was house sitting. And I had my Super Nintendo and Super Mario All-Stars, and decided I would play through Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. And I had reached somewhere in World 8, I believe it was, and just had a hard time with Luigi making the jumps, which, as anyone who played the Lost Levels knows, is a very difficult game. And, excuse me, I had played and played and played and died over and over again. This went on for 2 or 3 hours, just stuck on this one jump. Finally, I stepped up to the plate, which I wasn't expecting it to be my last time, but I put the controller down, I wiped my hands to get rid of the sweat. As we all know, your hands get sweaty whenever you're in the thick of it. And I picked up the controller, and Luigi stepped right off the cliff. Just right off the cliff. And everything compounded with my grandfather dying and house sitting and being alone for almost a week. I jumped up, grabbed the Super Nintendo, ripped it away from the TV, and launched it about 7 feet across the room. It hit the door and the wall, my front door and my living room wall, right at the base, at the corner, and just smashed right through it. Nintendo went to pieces, wall crumbled, and that's when I decided to go back home. I eventually played the game again in 2005 with a buddy of mine. We sat down and traded the controller back and forth per each time we died, and we eventually finished the game in one day.
That's awesome.
That's all I've got. Check me out, the Co-op Show. It's on iTunes, and you can check it out at vgce.podomatic.com. Thanks for having me on the Video Game Players Club.
That is an epic story. And I honestly, I haven't listened to Jeremy's podcast, and I've definitely got to check it out. If he's got stories like that and that, then that's something I've got to listen to. But man, the destruction of and that rage and culmination of emotions and feelings of his grandfather passing away, and just this explosion of anger. I have a confession to make. This segues into the topic of the show before we get into our interview with CrossChop, which is I don't really know what each episode's topic is going to be until I listen to your calls. You kind of shape the next week's topic because I kind of riff off of it. It's like jazz. We're like playing jazz together here. I don't know the order that I'm going to play the calls in. I don't know any of those things. I just sit down. I know what you've said to me in your calls, but I've only listened to them once, and I just sort of riff on it. So Jeremy's story about raging on a game, I have a personal game that I've had that experience with, and I'm going to save that for next week's topic, and that will be the topic this next week. I want you to call in through Skype, by phone, or you can write into the show. The topic is going to be games that made you rage. Maybe it's one series. Maybe it's one genre that drives you nuts. But a game, a story about games that make you rage. If there's got to be one that just is like, that's the game. I've tried it and I can't do it. It just makes me blow up. I have a game. It's going to be a surprise to you guys. So how do you call into the show? There's two ways to do it. You can call 1-805-351-CLUB. That's 1-805-351-2582. If you don't have to worry about long distance, if you're in the United States, you have a mobile phone, generally you can call that number. Or you can call on Skype Video Game Players Club. If you visit videogameplayersclub.com, there's a button right there that you can press that will open up Skype if you have it installed on the computer when you go to that website, and automatically call for you. When you call, you'll hear my voice recapturing the week's topic, and you'll hear a beep, and you just leave a message. Or you can go to videogameplayersclub.com/story and submit your story there. If you're a bit shy, you don't want to call in, but you still want to share something. So please call in if you can, and share your story about a game that makes you rage. This week on Continue, the segment where we talk about games outside of games. That's games and media. Could be movie, books, or people. I've been focusing on YouTubers for the past couple of episodes. This week, I've got an interview with CrossChop. Chris is a YouTuber who, his style, let's talk about that. He's got like a really clean, fresh style. He does a lot of pickup videos, but he also does a lot of topical stuff in top 5 kind of videos and that kind of thing recently. He's got a really great, fresh editing style. He's into the music scene in St. Louis, and he layers in music in a really fresh way that keeps the video interesting and something that's really fun to watch. But he's excited about video games. He's into the collector scene in St. Louis, and he's just a really nice guy. You can find him on YouTube if you search CrossChop Chris, but let's just jump into the interview. So this week's topic is about like a game you quit or gave up on. Particularly, like a memorable experience of that. Is there any that stand out for you?
Yeah, the first two that come to mind, I'll mention a very quick one first. The first one I gave up on, this is one of the earliest memories I have of giving up on a game, just flat out saying, no, this game sucks too much for me to continue playing. Was Blasto on PS1. That game, I remember renting it from a local shop in Indiana, and playing the first level and just hating the controls and the music, and even Phil Hartman's voice, God rest his soul. Like, I love Phil Hartman, but I just, everything about that game just turned me off. And I remember renting it and being like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, that one had it. The character design was interesting and the marketing was good, I think. But that was a turd of a game.
It was, and I don't have a copy yet, but to this day I still really want one. I know it's not even an expensive game. I do want to get it, both for nostalgia's sake and also to give it another fair try. And that would be a game that I would consider if I ever did get into the streaming culture, like of streaming Blasto just for fun, just so I could like have another shot at making fun of it and berating it, like talking about how much it just turned me off like at such a quick pace. But that's kind of the first one from an early point, and then a more recent one. And this is going to come as blasphemy to a lot of devout RPG fans and Super Nintendo fans. And I feel bad because I guess I should mention as a caveat, I really do want to give this game another proper attempt. And I want to do so on the Super Nintendo instead of on the Nintendo DS. That's the way I tried playing it. And that's Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
I had wanted to give it a shot after playing through and beating Earthbound because I loved Earthbound so much. And I was like, Chrono Trigger is another one of those RPGs that so many people cite as one of their favorite games of all time. And I feel like I should give this a shot. And it's much more of a traditional JRPG than Earthbound is. So I got a brand new copy on Amazon for like $25 on DS because I had done my research, and a lot of the consensus seemed to be that the DS copy was great because it didn't have the long load times of the PS1 version, and it also but it still had the cutscenes of the PS1 version, and the portable nature of it was pretty good. So I wanted to play it on DS because it was going to have really good image quality on the small screen too. And so I played it, and for some reason, I think part of the problem I'm sure it was my fault because I played it in a very, I guess, broken up sort of way. I would play for like a few days, and then I wouldn't play again for a few days because I would be working on videos, or like I would just be busy with work, or I'd be playing something else on console. And to me, like, handheld gaming is more like what I do when I'm out of town, like if I'm going on the plane or like I'm in a road trip or just, on a weekend getaway or something. I'll bring my DS or my 3DS or now my new PS Vita. That's the plan with that. But yeah, Chrono Trigger, I would play for a little bit, and like that's not a great way to play a JRPG or an RPG for that matter.
Yeah.
You really have to kind of lock into it and play it because it's so hard to come back to, and that's what I struggled with. I would kind of chip away at it, and that was, I think, problem number one. But for some reason the characters, I just didn't really connect with them as well, and I think part of that's just like being distracted with other things. So I feel like if I were to give it another go, on home console instead, where I would sit down and devote myself to it, kind of the way I did with Earthbound, and I would play in 2 or 3 hour or more increments, and do so like as best I could for over the course of a couple weeks or something, or maybe even less, depending on how voraciously I ate it up. I feel like it definitely deserves another shot. But yeah, for some reason, it just didn't really, resonate with me very well. So I abandoned it. I think I had gotten to a point where, I think I was probably 75% of the way through the game. I was using a guide to help me kind of regain my place, and so then I would have some idea of where I needed to go next, some frame of reference. And from what I could tell, I think I was about 75% of the way through the game, and then I abandoned.
What made you decide that you wanted to start making videos on YouTube about games in particular?
I guess I'd been in St. Louis probably about 4 months, 3 or 4 months, and I had found myself kind of getting, I guess I'd say, into YouTube more than I ever had been. To me, YouTube had been all through, college, and then a little bit in high school before that. Kind of this thing that, I would go to when someone at school or a friend would say, "Oh, you've got to see this YouTube video. You've got to see this this chimpanzee throwing poop at somebody at the zoo.
Yeah.
And then we go on like, just a short little binge of, really ridiculous fail videos or like just stupid comedy videos usually. But I was familiar with James Rolfe and the Angry Video Game Nerd, and and that was kind of the extent of it. I knew that there were a handful of video game related channels out there and stuff, but I didn't really think of YouTube that way until I'd moved to St. Louis and had been kind of looking for other diversions and other ways to spend my time. I'd been working for this software company in downtown St. Louis in kind of a tech support and kind of like sales sort of role.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of, I liked the people I worked with and the environment was really cool, but I felt kind of unfulfilled, and I was like, I really need a hobby. Like I need something kind of new to do. Because before I moved to St. Louis, I basically just like would hang out with my friends and my roommates and stuff. And it was basically like just like kind of social interactions all the time. And I found myself kind of becoming even more introverted. I've always been an introvert, but I have extroverted tendencies at times, and I can kind of jump back and forth just depending on, I guess, the need. But anyway, I for some reason or another, I was like, I miss having my Nintendo 64. And so I got on Craigslist and was kind of looking around. And after, a few days probably of, just beating around the bush, I found a guy who was selling his N64 with a bag of games. One of them was like a CIB copy of Donkey Kong 64. And I was like, oh, cool. This has that and some other games I've never played, as well as like GoldenEye, and he wanted only like $60 for it. I was like, that's fine. I'll go pick that up. So that kind of snowballed into me buying a few more games here and there. And I was like, I never owned a Super Nintendo myself, but my girlfriend has one. So I want to start playing some of those Super Nintendo games I've always loved, but never owned because my family didn't have one.
Yeah.
And so I started kind of collecting games, and, you become more and more interested and curious as you're playing them and as you're trying to find more, and you're like, where am I going to learn more of this stuff? I'm going to get on YouTube. I'm going to Google things, and YouTube videos are going to be the search result. And so I found, Metal Jesus that way. I found, the Game Chasers and Game Sack and all these channels, and some of them I don't watch as much as I used to. But they kind of, like showed me like, hey, these guys seem like pretty normal, down to earth people that, they're putting out fun and interesting information and making it, available to people for free. I feel like I could do some of that. I don't know as much about everything that they do, but I may know some things that they don't. And, even if I don't know as much, I still have a unique perspective.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of, I think, has their own way of looking at things and their own voice that they can present. So I was like, I've been looking for ways to create stuff again. YouTube just seemed like a really good path to getting back into kind of more my creative side. I felt like I'd kind of strayed away from it a little bit, and video making is a great way to do that.
So you started doing YouTube videos, and when did you start meeting other retro gamers in St. Louis? Was that through YouTube, or was that in person at stores? How did that sort of happen for you?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think back. I think I had been uploading videos for a little while, and they were. I mean, I'm not even kidding. They were getting like, I think, under 10 views. Like it was literally, I would watch once to make sure it had uploaded okay, and then like a few of my friends, I would like link it to them on Facebook. But I've never done much like personal promotion of my channel, like myself, and I think it's better, I'm sure, like when people do. I just haven't myself. I've kind of just reserved it to just like, its own entity and stuff. Like, I mean, obviously, like my friends and family all know that like I do, I make YouTube videos and like that I go by this name of, like I have a channel called CrossChop and stuff, but I don't really like on my like, personal Facebook profile or anything like promote my videos or anything like that really.
Yeah.
But as far as, like linking up with other people in the St. Louis area, I think what happened was I was just curious about, whether there were any other, people doing YouTube videos related to retro gaming in the St. Louis area. And I think I just got into Facebook and like searched, St. Louis retro or something like that, St. Louis retro games or gaming. And lo and behold, there was already a really well-established Facebook group. And I joined that and just kind of, I think, read posts for a while and would like other people's posts and comment every now and then, making no mention of my channel. And then eventually I, had enough courage and I was like, hey, this is my most recent, pickups video. Let me, if you guys are interested, here it is. And like, probably like, 5 people watched it or something at the time, but it was enough that, some of the other people who were making videos as well, subscribed to my channel. And, we just kind of would start watching each other's videos and it really just kind of grew from there. I was looking recently at my analytics, and like around this time last year, I think I only had around 130 subscribers. And then in 2014, it was probably, I would bet it was under 20.
Yeah.
I started the channel in technically April of 2014, I think it was, but I don't think I uploaded my first like actual CrossChop video until May. It was, my channel's been a very slow growing one. I think it was really just through Facebook, and now I know a lot of great people in the area through Facebook, and there's a really thriving community here. A lot of people are willing to help each other out, and very, very supportive of each other's goals. There's a big NES collecting scene here, and I mean, there really is pretty much everywhere at this point. That seems to be kind of the ubiquitously popular platform to collect for at the moment, I think. But it's a really great area, and there's a lot of really dedicated people here.
Yeah, Neosolid, he's actually called into the show a few times, and it sounds like, I mean, you've did the meetup with him, and
yeah,
you've done it a few times in videos where you've said, well, these are the games that I played this year, or you did the top 5 of these are my favorite games of this year, and it feels like you might be more conscious of the collecting side of it as well as the enjoying side of it, and making sure that you have a balance there where it's not too much one or the other necessarily.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately too. There are certain games, I guess like a recent example, I almost never buy a game at launch when it's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had bought a brand new game since 2013 when BioShock Infinite came out. And even then, when I bought BioShock Infinite, I had like I went into it knowing that I had like a $20 Walmart gift card, so I dropped the $60 price tag down to $40.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play that game so badly that I was willing to fork over the dough, right away, so that I could enjoy it and kind of, I guess, be part of the,
the
social
experience.
media discussion. Yeah, and kind of I gave myself into the hype, I guess, a little bit.
Do you have any like rules of engagement when it comes to purchasing a digital copy of a game, or do you prefer physical over digital?
I absolutely prefer physical when possible. I'll get digital games pretty much only if, I guess the 2 main criteria that come to mind are, one being if digital distribution is the only way to play it, like if there is no physical version that's available or that's affordably available, then I'll pay for a digital download that's cheap. Like I don't have one that comes to mind is on PS1, The Misadventures of Trombone. You can get it for like $6 on
exactly,
on the PlayStation Store. I don't have a physical copy. I'm not
right.
It's not a game that I want so badly that I'm willing to pay $250
right.
or many dollars that goes for now. If I do want to play it, I'll pay the $6 and I'll download it onto my PSP or my PS3 or something, and I'll play it at some point.
Yeah, you got to pick that up. Do you already have it now that you have a Vita? The digital copy?
I don't. So far on my Vita, I've got this the first Jet Moto, basically because that's just like a
yeah, no, man. When I was young and with my friends, that was the game, and it's a little bit of like to be punny, but it's like a splash of cold water when you play it again, and you're like, wow. You definitely have to get used to it all again, and Unfortunately, even at the time when it was out, I was worthless in that game, and that's why my friends loved playing it with me, was because I sucked so bad. And so they could, they always had a really good chance of beating me. But yeah, those Jet Moto games, man. Oh,
Yeah.
the first one and the soundtrack on the first one's so good. Like that weird, like,
Yeah.
it has that 60s beach music and sorry.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. I was thoroughly enjoying that the other night. I was playing, a circuit on there and enjoying it's very, do you know who Dick Dale is, the guitarist?
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's got the song Miser Lou. It's got that like super fast tremolo picking guitar. He's known as the king of surf guitar.
Yeah.
And that's very much where they like, especially like mainly those like beach songs.
Yeah.
It's very heavily Dick Dale influenced music, and I just eat that up. Those songs just like really strike the nostalgia chord for me.
Man, I love that series. I only played 1 and 2. I never played 3.
Same, yeah. I never owned 2, and I remember playing it and being actually kind of annoyed that with the turbo, instead of it just being like a set of 4 turbos, you had like a continuous, like you had like fuel for it essentially. Like you would have to just kind of press triangle and use a little bit of fuel to go in turbo mode, and then you would deplete your turbo allowance faster. Like I kind of liked having a finite set of 4, because then I could, after playing tracks enough, strategically deploy
right.
them.
Man, there was I distinctly remember a course. I don't know if it was on 1 or 2, where you loop back and you go against the traffic, I guess.
Yeah, Suicide Swamp.
That's what it was. That was the one that we played that all the time. That was like the track.
That one is so brutal. Yeah. It's kind of fun. I dread it, but I also look forward to it because it can be kind of unpredictable, because
it's roulette.
Going back, you might run into somebody and totally ruin your run.
Another story that I honed in on that you had mentioned, both of these are actually quite recent in your videos, but you had mentioned on your top 5 nostalgic games a particular experience of getting the Pizza Hut demo disc and playing Metal Gear Solid. Now, is this the demo that's in Japanese, or is this was it in English?
Yeah, I got it at Pizza Hut. I was as a young lad in like 1997, 98, whenever that was. I was just super hungry to get games and new experiences for the PS1. I thought it was just seriously the coolest piece of technology I'd ever played. I remember I'd first experienced it at my friend Bob's house, and we would play games like Gex, the first Gex, the 2D one.
Yeah.
And what else? Probably Crash Bandicoot and maybe some other racing games possibly. And then I think he was really into wrestling, so probably some wrestling games. But yeah, I wanted to get whatever discs that I could for my PS1. And so when Pizza Hut was doing those promotions, I was like, Mom, Dad, I don't care about the pizza. I want to go to Pizza Hut for these demo discs. Like, I want to get these discs so I have more free games to play, even if they are just demos. And maybe like for Christmas or my birthday, I'll be able to get 1 or 2 of these actual games and then play them properly. And I hadn't even heard of Metal Gear Solid until I got that demo. And of course, after playing the demo, probably 50 times,
exactly.
I remember seeing a commercial or 2 on TV for the game and just being blown away and floored by the fact that I was like, this video game's getting like a commercial. And I don't remember if it was like at the Super Bowl, or it seemed like it was for like some sporting event. So like my whole family saw it, and I was like, look, Mom, Dad, this game is relevant enough and it's important enough that they're giving it like prime time real estate on. I didn't probably say the words real estate at that time, because I was a wee lad and didn't have such words in my vernacular. But I was like, this is important. You should pay attention, and we should get this game because I really want to play it. And my dad was like, I don't think you should. It's it's got this M for mature rating on it and stuff. And my mom, I don't think she like understood what any of that meant or knew
right.
What a rating system even was, except for probably movies like PG-13 and R and all that stuff. But somehow I convinced her, using my birthday money, I think it was, I'd saved up, enough money, and at the time, I think the price had dropped on Metal Gear Solid, I think, to like $40 or $50, which was still a lot for a kid like me. But I convinced her to take me to Walmart in my town so that I could buy it, and I remember just being super nervous because I knew that the clerk in the electronics department was going to mention the fact that it was rated M and stuff, and lo and behold, they did. But my mom was like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, that's all right. He's played it at home." And she knew that I was enthusiastic about it and that I'd played the demo, but never the whole game. So she let me do it, and I could not contain my excitement. Like, it was one of those where I, hopped back into my mom's van and like I broke the plastic off and was just like reading every word in the instruction manual and just like examining the discs and looking at the back and just like enjoying the feeling of holding that new, dual disc PS1 case in my hands, and just being like unable to resist my excitement of getting home and of properly playing the full game.
Did you? I'm guessing no, but did you get a PlayStation Underground subscription?
I actually did not. Yeah, I remember somehow. I think I might have bought one myself at like a newsstand or maybe like on a trip. I feel like I might have done like a family trip to Texas at some point, and I had bought one off of like a gas station newsstand or something, possibly. I think I had I definitely did. Now that I think about it, I had a GamePro subscription, and that was kind of my jam for a while. I was a voracious reader of GamePro for quite a while there, and loved that magazine.
Yeah, it's so funny to watch how the internet's changed everything, because I distinctly remember just a drought of game information because you were waiting for the next magazine to come out, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so you'd sit there with your stack of 5 that you already had and just read them over and over again because you just didn't have anything else. For the listeners, how can they find you online?
Sure. Yeah, the best way to kind of stay up to date with me would probably be on my Facebook page. As far as just like, notifications about, the best way to do it is to subscribe to my channel. Then you can see all the new videos. But if there's ever a delay in videos or like, other things that I want to share, it's always going to be on Facebook. Just facebook.com/crosschop. And then I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at CrossChop Chris. So those are great ways to get in touch with me. Twitter's probably the fastest way to hear back from me if you have a question or anything like that. But otherwise, as far as creative output, YouTube's the way to go.
Cool. But thank you very much for being on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matthew, for having me, and I'll be looking forward to hearing the finished podcast, and I'll definitely be tuning into all of the future ones as well.
Awesome, Chris. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks.
Yeah, see ya. All right, well, that's it for this week. I want to thank you for listening, and please don't forget to give me your calls. You can follow me on Twitter at vgplayersclub.com. Thank you for listening to episode 3, and I'll see you next week.